The first thing I want to do is remove the wiper arms, and there is a nut underneath this cap here, so let's start by removing the cap. You can use a pocket screwdriver or a pick or anything you have that might get underneath here to get the cap off. 15mm socket, remove this nut. Now if you just take the wiper arm, wiggle it back and forth. There we go. Should eventually break free. Remove it off of the wiper transmission. Set this aside, and then you want to do the same to the other wiper arm. Along the cowl, you'll see clips like this one here that can just be popped out. Might need a little tool if you can't grab it. There should be 3 in total, 1 in the middle, 1 on each side. Remove those. On each side, you'll see that there's a little push clip that holds this weather stripping in place. Take this push clip out to remove the weather stripping from the fender. And then once you remove it, you'll see another push clip of the same style that locks the cowl onto this frame here underneath. This side's now free, so do the same to the other side. Now grab onto the cowl, lift it up over the wiper transmission. There we go. And slide it off. Here's the wiper transmission. Let's unplug the wiper motor first. And to do that, the connector's actually, or the locking tab for the connector's underneath. I'll show you in a second, but you have to pull down on it. So this is what locks it in. You pull away from the motor and then out. Set that aside. 3 10mm bolts hold the transmission with the motor onto the car. Pull this up. There you go. Now let's take the motor off the transmission. I have both wiper transmissions next to each other, and I positioned this one approximately the way this one is positioned, in the same orientation. You want to make sure that they're the same, otherwise if you don't line them up and you put your motor on and you bolt it up, put it in the car, and this is not positioned right, your wipers are going to go in odd directions at first, so that's obviously not good. So I lined them up as close as I could get them. Obviously we can make adjustments later. But now I need to unbolt this from the motor. 14mm socket for this nut. If you don't have an impact, electric or air, whatever it might be best to somehow hold this in place. That way it doesn't spin as you try to break it free. Now you can pull this off. Looks like it's kind of stuck, so we'll grab a pry bar. Let's try to pop it off the motor. There we go. That comes right off. Set this arm aside. Let's unbolt the motor. 2 10mm bolts. Take this plate off, take the motor off, set this aside over here, grab the new assembly, and let's put the motor on first, just like this. Start on your 2 bolts, snug them up. All right, those are snug. Now, this is where it gets tricky and important. So I remember that this piece right here was perfectly parallel, this bracket to this arm. So this is how I'm going to line this up. And as you can see, it doesn't quite fit, which means I have to turn this in order to make it fit with these perfectly parallel. Again, we can make adjustments later. Put on your lock washer and the nut. And again, if you don't have an electric impact or air impact, whatever you might have, then somehow hold this in place, maybe with some pliers, so that this doesn't spin everything. Snug it up. All right, now this is ready to be put back in the vehicle. So let's do that, then we'll test it, and I'll show you exactly what to look for when you test it. Grab your new assembly, match it up with the bolt holes, and then bolt it on. Start the 3 bolts in, snug them up. When you tighten these up completely, don't go crazy because you'll completely squish the bushings. Let's reconnect the motor. And now let's test the wipers. Now with the key in the on position, we're going to run the wipers once, and what you want to see is this stud here going up and then down. And that's it. You don't want it to start by going down a little bit and then up. and you don't want it to go up and then down and then back up. You want it only up and then only down. If it doesn't do that, then it's not properly adjusted, so we'll have to adjust from there. So let's give it a shot. That looks perfect. As you can see. Now if it started, like I said, by going down a little bit and then up and then back down, well, that's not good because your wipers would jam themselves into the cowl and then go up. So this is perfect. And if you had to adjust anything, you would take that bolt for the motor out, right where it bolts up to the transmission, and move it a little bit. Obviously you'd have to take this back out, move it a little bit, reposition it, and then test it again. So because everything is good for me, I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall the cowl, line it up with all of its mounting locations, which aren't that many, but mainly just bring it over these studs here. On this side you'll have to kind of squish it a little bit to get it under the hood hinges. There we go. Now make sure it's got a bunch of clips on the back side. Make sure they go under the windshield, but this rubber piece needs to go over. And there's also rubber pieces in the corners here. Those also need to go over. Now take the push clips that lock this on and lock this on. Put the weather stripping back here and do the same to the other side. Don't forget about the clips that hold it on at the front here. Put all three of them back. Take your wiper arms. The driver's side had the larger wiper. The passenger side had the shorter wiper. Position it approximately where you had it before. You can probably see the witness marks that the wipers left on the windshield. So just line it up with that. Start the nut on and snug it up. Right there. Put the cap on and then do the same to the driver's side.